This is the headlight switch that came in my 2015 GMC Sierra 3500 HD. It's got a red trim background on it and a fog light button. I'm going to replace it with this headlight switch. This one has the fog light button, but it also has an off-road light button and the red background on it. This is the same one, only it has a blue background on it. This one was discontinued by GM and sold by a wholesaler on eBay. Everything works fine except there's no backlight for the icon on the button, whereas this red one does have a backlighting inside the actual button. The BCM already has the programming in it to make this off-road light button work in a 2016 and later. For the most part, there's been a report of a 2017 without that programming in it, but I'm pretty sure 2014 and 2015 did not have it, and most everything 2016 and later did have the programming. This video is to show how to get this switch to work in your 2014 and 2015 model year trucks that don't have the BCM programming and get it to work like factory using a latching relay. Let's start with a little experiment here on the counter to show you how this works. Got the off-road light switch with the red backlighting, 12-volt power supply, positive and negative bus bar, 4-channel latching relay, and a little light for an off-road light. First, let's take a look at this latching relay. This is a 4-channel latching relay I picked up off Amazon. They're pretty affordable, less than 20 bucks. You can see DC positive, that'd be power in. You want that to be ignition power fused, meaning it's fused and it's on when the key is on. Then ground. Channel 1, 2, 3, and 4 would be trigger 1, trigger 2, trigger 3, and trigger 4 for each of those 4 relays. Something else I should mention is that if you buy the same style of latching relay, you're going to have to move this bridge from the front 2 pins to the back 2 pins. And over here on this side, you're going to have to move it from the front 2 to the back 2. Now it'll work just fine. Alright, so I've got positive and negative hooked up to the latching relay, and when I power up the power supply, you can see the indicator light comes on, indicating that the latching relay center has power and ground. Now I have a second ground wire hooked up to the negative side of the bus bar. If I touch that to channel number 1, it will latch relay number 1. Touch it again, it unlatches it. So channel 1, 2, 3, and 4. One press it's on, one press it's off. Why is that important? Well, the output from the button on our off-road light switch sends a momentary signal. So without that BCM programming, this is only going to continuously send a signal as long as you're holding that button down. With the latching relay, we can convert that momentary signal to a constant signal and trigger an automotive relay to run your off-road lights. Here's a close-up of the connector on the back of this headlight switch. I'm going to hook up this yellow wire to pin number 2. That's LED backlight dimming control. I'm going to hook this black wire up to pin number 8 for ground. Alright, I've got yellow hooked up to the positive side of the bus bar for backlight dimming control and ground hooked up to the negative side. Now when I power on the power supply, you can see the backlight dimming comes on. Now I'm going to plug this gray wire into pin number 6. That'll be the output from the off-road light switch. And I'm going to run that over to channel number 1 of our latching relay. Okay, now with pin number 6 on our off-road light switch hooked up to channel number 1 on our latching relay, if I push off-road lights, it will latch relay number 1. Push it once it's on, push it again it's off. Alright, let's take a closer look at this latching relay. We've got positive and negative coming in there through the ignition, and then we've got channel number 1 hooked up to the output from pin number 6 on our off-road light switch. When we trigger channel number 1, it will lock or latch relay number 1. If you look closely at the labeling on these relays, you'll see NC1, COM1, and NO1. And what that means is this is the normally closed circuit for relay number 1, common circuit for relay number 1, and normally open for relay number 1. What that means is that the input, positive or negative, doesn't matter, is going to be coming into the common circuit for this relay. It's normally closed with the normally closed circuit. So these two are always going to be connected when the relay is powered off, when it's non-energized, when you haven't latched it. Common is going to be connected to normally closed. When we energize the relay, when we latch it, normally closed and common are no longer connected. And the circuit that is normally open, that's normally not connected to common, is now connected when this relay is latched or energized. So if we have an input coming into common, and then we latch the relay, our output will come out of normally open. Now let's take a quick look at the indicator button. To get that light to light up, we need to give it positive power. So if we hook up a wire to pin number 9 on the back of this connector, and then we touch it to the positive side of the bus bar, you can see that orange light comes on in behind the button. Now I'm going to run this jumper wire from the positive input to the latching relay over to the common circuit for relay number 1. And the wire coming from pin number 9 for the indicator light on the button, I'm going to hook that up to the output or the normally open circuit of latching relay number 1. So now when we latch this relay, it will take positive power from the common circuit and send it out of the normally open circuit, sending power back to that button, lighting up the icon. Now let's get this light bar involved. I've got the ground hooked up to the negative side of the bus bar, and let's run the positive into the normally open output for relay number 1, the same one that we have the indicator button light plugged into. Now when I trigger that relay, it'll kick on the light. This little LED trailer reverse light only draws about 1.5 amps, so it's not such a big deal pulling that power through this latching relay. But this latching relay can't be used to power up an off-road light. It just won't support the amperage. So what we're going to use it for is to convert this momentary signal to a constant signal to trigger a relay that will support that light. Let's hook up this automotive relay. I'm going to hook battery power to terminal 30 and the positive input lead to the light bar to terminal 87. And now for the trigger. What we need to do is put positive power to 85 and ground or negative to 86. That will flip a switch, if you will, inside and connect that battery power coming into 30 to the output from 87 going out to the positive side of the light bar. So if we want to do a positive trigger, like what most aftermarket wire harnesses have that come with an off-road light, what we're going to have to do is put ground to 86, and then the signal coming from our latching relay will be a positive signal going to 85. So let's hook up ground to 86. Okay, I've got this green lead hooked onto the negative side of the bus bar, and I'm going to hook this onto terminal 86 of our relay. And now for the positive signal to terminal 85. That's going to come from the normally open circuit of latching relay number 1, the same circuit that powers up the indicator light on the front of the button. So when I hit that button, it's going to send the momentary signal from the switch to the latching relay. Latching the relay, connecting the positive common circuit to the output going over to terminal 85, connecting the battery power in terminal 30 to the output to the light from 87. Okay, so this setup works fine. Hit the button, indicator light comes on, triggers the underhood relay, powering up the light bar. But let's say you want to use the factory underhood relays that come in the X50A and they take a negative signal. Well, how do you get a positive signal to this switch and a negative signal to the underhood relay? Well, let's start by unhooking our triggers. We're still going to keep battery power to terminal 30 and the accessory power coming out of 87 to the light bar. Next, I'm going to hook up fused ignition power to terminal 85, which means it's fused and it only comes on when the key is on. It has power when the ignition is on. Latching relay number 1 is going to stay the same. We've got positive coming into the common circuit, and the normally open circuit has its only output now coming over to power up the indicator light on the front of the button. Now, just like on latching relay number 1, I'm taking a jumper wire, this time from the negative, over to the common circuit of latching relay number 2. Now I have this green wire hooked onto latching relay number 2's normally open circuit, or the output circuit. This will be ground because we have ground coming into the common. And that's going over to terminal 86 of our underhood relay. And now for the trigger. I'm going to put this jumper wire between channel number 1 and channel number 2. So when we trigger channel number 1, channel number 2 gets triggered as well. Just like that. Now when I press the button, I'm still sending that same momentary signal over to channel number 1. But it's also linked up to channel number 2. So with one push of the button, I'm simultaneously latching relay number 1 and relay number 2. Relay number 1 has a positive input to the common circuit, so it also has a positive output coming from normally open. That's coming over to power up the indicator light on the front of the button. Latching relay number 2 has a negative input to the common circuit, so its output is negative. That's going to come over and trigger our underhood relay on terminal 86. Terminal 85 is switched on ignition power, so when the key's on, that one has power. So we hit the button, indicator light comes on, underhood relay has a constant negative signal triggering it, powering up the light. So let's say you're sporting down the road, got the off-road lights on, you pull over, you park, you shut your truck off, everything turns off. Latching relay bank loses power, done. Turn the truck back on, latching relay bank has power again, but it needs to be re-triggered in order for that light to come back on. Alright, so you picked up a pretty nice off-road light bar for your truck. It came with a complete harness, waterproof connectors, hook it up to the battery, and hook it up to this little switch, and you're good to go. Problem is, you don't want to put a hole in the dashboard of your $70,000 truck. You want to install a switch like this, and not deal with an octopus, and have it work. Let's tear this thing down to basics, and make that happen. So you plug in the new headlight switch. It lights up, everything works fine, because you've already got two of these wires in there. The backlighting and the ground. That's already there. The gray wire, that's going to be the output, the trigger wire coming from the switch to the latching relay bank. And then this purple wire, that's the input. That's coming back to power up the indicator light on the front of the button. You're also going to need positive and negative for the latching relay bank. That's going to come from this X7 connector. This plugs into the X61A junction block down behind your brake pedals. You just plug it in, flip the lever to lock, and you're done. And last, you're going to need that signal wire coming from latching relay number 1. That's going to trigger the relay in your aftermarket harness that came with your off-road light switch. This is going to be a positive signal for most lights. Okay, here it is. This is the switch they want you to drill a hole in your dashboard and mount. Not going to happen. Here's that plug-and-play wire harness that came with the light bar. Hook the positive and negative onto the battery. And then you've got this one that plug into the back of the switch, 3 wires. And plug this into the light bar. You're good to go. I've also got this 12-volt battery here because my power supply can't handle the amount of output required for that light bar. All right, let's get started. Just going to unravel this just a little bit so we have a little bit more to work with. That ought to work. Positive, negative, light bar connection, and the switch. Typically there's 3 wires. Power to the switch, power from the switch going out to the relay, and ground for the indicator light inside the switch. Let's hook that up. Alright, so we've got power in, power out, and ground. Flip the switch, indicator light comes on, relay takes power from the battery, sends it to the light bar. But we're not using this switch. What we need to do is isolate the wire coming from the switch to the relay, and we need to hook up the output from latching relay number 1 to that wire. So now, when we hit our headlight switch, the off-road light button, it's going to trigger that relay in our aftermarket harness, turning on the light bar. Taking power from the battery, sending it through the relay to the light bar. Here's how to change out that headlight switch. Pop off the fuse block cover on the left side of the dashboard. Then with both hands, grab a hold of the panel with the headlight switch in it, pull it straight out, and then unplug all the plugs. With the headlight switch panel out and in your hand, you can flip it over, put a little bit of pressure on the front of the switch, and then pry out to release the tabs on the back of the switch. Pops right out of there. New one pops back in the same way. Good to go. Next, you want to remove the TPA from the headlight switch plug, slip a screwdriver into this little slot, and pull the whole thing right off of there. If you look closely at the back of the plug, you'll see these cavities are numbered. This will be number 1, number 6, number 7, and number 12. So what we want to do is insert the gray wire, that's going to be the trigger wire for the relay, into cavity number 6. Push it until it locks down. And then the yellow wire, that's going to be our signal wire back to the indicator on the button into cavity number 9. Alright, with those new terminals locked into cavity number 6 and number 9, we want to put that TPA back in, assuring that they stay in place. Slide it all the way in and snap it into place. Okay, I've got the gray wire coming into channel number 1 for trigger number 1 for latching relay number 1. The output from latching relay number 1 coming from the normally open circuit back up to the headlight switch to power the indicator light on the button, and then a red wire coming from the same circuit, normally open, that's going to go out under the hood to trigger our underhood relay in our aftermarket harness. And then I've got positive and negative powering up the latching relay, and they're coming from the X7 connector that's going to plug into the X61A junction block down behind the brake pedals. The latching relay bank tucks in nicely behind the headlight switch and can be screwed into the plastic dashboard with a couple self-drilling screws. Next, you want to remove these 2 7mm head screws from the side of this air conditioning vent. Then you want to pry the vent outward and slip this X7 connector diagonally back in there and drop it down above the pedals. And with the X7 connector down below, put the vent back in place and screw it back in. With the vent back in place, plug in the headlight switch and whatever other switches you've got, four-wheel drive switch, trailer brake controller, and snap it back into the dashboard. And the fuse block cover. Now when you come down behind the pedals, you'll see the cover for the X61A. I've already popped it loose, so it'll come off easily for me. But there are two tabs on the right side that need to be pried up, and one tab on the left side. But it pops off there pretty easily. That exposes the slot where the X7 connector goes. Just pop it back on there and rotate that lever down, locking it in. You put the cover back on, it's time to feed this wire out through the firewall boot. This is the access hole that we'll use, and I found that it's easier to shove a fish tape, or in my case a 1/4-inch drive extension, through the hole to the inside, then tape the wire on and pull it back out. Okay, I've got that red wire coming out of the firewall boot, hooked into the blue wire on our aftermarket harness. Aftermarket harness hooked up to the battery, light bar plugged in and resting up here on the radiator support. Okay, got the headlight switch plugged in, powered up, truck's on, hit the button, you can see the backlighting on the icon comes on, and the off-road light pops on out there on the radiator support. Okay, got the truck running, fog lights work, off-road light bar on and off. Okay, with it on, I'm going to shut the truck off. Light loses power to the latching relay, turn the truck back on. Light's still not on until I hit that button again, kicks back on. Here's what it looks like in the dark. Alright, well that's about it. I'll probably shoot a second video showing how to hook this up to a factory X50A, the underhood fuse box that uses the negative triggers for the relays. This is a fairly new mod, so there are some problems that I'm sure will arise, but we'll work through that. As far as buying a pre-made harness for this setup, check out P. Gamboa on the gm-trucks.com forum. Send him a PM, or check him out on YouTube as well. He makes some very high quality GM upgrade harnesses. There will probably be 4 or 5 different variants of this harness depending on what your needs are. One mod for this mod that I've been kicking around is how to activate your off-road light by turning your headlight switch to the on position and then turning your high beams on, so that you can have full control of your regular headlights and then switch over to the on position on your headlights, and that'll also operate your off-road lights. This switch and latching relay combination open up just a world of lighting options and mods. Check it out on the gm-trucks.com forum. Put your 2 cents in, kick around some ideas. See you there.